Good morning. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And, well, this was an interesting 24 hours. As yesterday morning broke into the early afternoon into afternoon, our seeming never-ending bullshit of economic drama, along with all the other dramas that this particular presidential administration has caused for us in the United States, and if not the world, got a bit more choppy as President Trump has called out and declared that he will put a pause on the tariffs throughout the world, with the exception of China, which he ramped up to 125%. His supporters, who were fluctuating between those within his administration and those who were the talking heads trying to sell what he was selling to people, trying to sell, that is, who was fluctuating on, oh, these are negotiating tactics, oh no, he really, really means that all these tariffs are permanent. Now to scramble to give him praise upon the genius of this act. This is the art of the deal, man. You see, you don't see it because obviously you're not thinking, you're not in that four-dimensional chess. No. It couldn't possibly be that just prior to his announcement of putting a 90-day pause on the tariffs would be, related in any way to the European Union going to respond to the United States tariffs with an across-the-board 25% tariff for all the EU nations towards the United States. Wouldn't be about that. And of course, the hike of the tariffs on China had nothing, never mind about China doing an 84% tariff hike on our goods. No. And then certainly, it has nothing to do with the bond market overnight imploding, making it pretty clear to the globe that we are unreliable trade partners. Yeah, that has nothing to do with any of that, clearly. So, here we are, again, where we go to the point of getting all D'd up, and like, oh yeah, we're going to put some tariffs on, we're going to crush the economics of the world, we're going to bring manufacturing back, we're going to make everyone in the United States pay for and purchase goods only made in America, even though, the manufacturing arm of this wonderful plan will take 2 to 3 years, given the industry, for us to be ramping out the products that we would be only buying in America because they're too expensive to buy them elsewhere. But so we would have to wait until all that's happening. In the meantime of us waiting, we would be suffering the economic downfall of the tariffs onto that. Okay. But as all this was going on, again, we can't have anything just be simple. So Trump decided to, for no real apparent reason really, kind of give the game away to stockholders and the like before he made this announcement about the tariffs. And that raises some questions amongst economic experts and obviously political rivals. If in this whole very super serial need of us to tariff the world, and then no longer need to tariff the world, but put a pause on it now, that might be a little bit of market manipulation going on here. So let's go into it from an article from The Guardian. Trump ignites insider trading accusations after global tariff U-turn. U.S. President posted it was a great time to buy on social media just hours before pausing tariff impositions. Donald Trump is facing accusations of market manipulation after posting on social media that it was a great time to buy just hours before making a dramatic U-turn on his trade war that led to the big rises in stock markets around the world. Shortly after the U.S. market opens on Wednesday morning, Trump wrote on his social media platform Truth Social, "This is a great time to buy! DJT!" Less than 4 hours later, he shocked investors by announcing a 90-day pause on additional trade tariffs on most countries except China, sending the share indexes soaring. Yay! In America, in the S&P 500 blue chip index closed up by more than 9%, while the technology-focused Nasdaq index shut more than 12% up. Stocks continue to rise in Asia and Europe on Thursday, with Japan's Nikkei 225 index up by 9%, London's FTSE 100 index raising by as much as 4% in early trading. Trump does not usually sign off his posts with his initials. Those letters happen to be the same as the ticker for the Trump Media and Technology Group, the business that controls Truth Social, whose stock shot up by 22% on Wednesday. The timing of the U.S. president's post and subsequent huge share jumps has sparked accusations of market manipulation. The Democratic Senator Adam Schiff has called for an investigation, saying these constant gyrations in policy provided dangerous opportunities for insider trading. Who in the administration knew about Trump's latest tariff flip-flop ahead of time? Did anyone buy or sell stocks, and the profits at the public's expense? I'm writing to the White House. The public has the right to know. The Democratic Senator Chris Murphy also wrote on X that an insider trading scandal is brewing. Trump's 9:30 a.m. tweet makes it clear he was eager for his people to make money off the private information only he knew. So who knew ahead of time, and how much money did they make? The New York Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called for all members of Congress to disclose any stocks that they have bought in the past 24 hours. I have been hearing from some interesting chatter on the floor, she wrote on X. Disclosure deadline is May 15th. We're about to learn a few things. It's time to ban insider trading in Congress. When asked by U.S. reporters on Wednesday evening when exactly he arrived at this decision to the pause on the tariffs on most countries for 90 days, Trump said, "For the time being, I would say this morning, over the last few days, I've been thinking about it." Couldn't be, those thoughts would be around like the whole stock market crashing 2,000 points 2 days in a row or anything. However, the White House officials have argued the shift was part of a strategy all along, with his press secretary Caroline Leavitt, also known as Press Secretary Barbie, arguing that it's his art of the deal at work. The art of the deal. See, 4 dimension. Several investors have used volatility in the stock market in recent weeks as a buying opportunity. The U.S. representative for Georgia, Republican and Trump ally Marjorie Taylor Greene disclosed that she had made several purchases on the 3rd and 4th of April, days when there were sharp market fails after Trump first detailed his reciprocal tariff plan on April 2nd, including shares in Amazon.com and Apple. Shares in the technology companies rose by 12% and 50% respectively on Wednesday. While Trump has paused many of the new country-specific tariffs, he has maintained pressure on China, the second biggest economy in the world. He's increased the tariffs on Chinese imports to 125% from the 104% level that started on Wednesday. Beijing could respond again after hitting U.S. imports with 84% tariffs that began on Thursday. So, yeah. So that happened. Yeah, this is not Trump, bowing to the pressure and feeling the personal responsibility of trashing the world and alienating the United States economically, as it has been doing in foreign policy, with his antics towards Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal and Mexico and this and that. And don't forget, we're going to be ethnically cleansing Gaza so we can make Gaza into the Mediterranean Riviera, which Mediterranean already has Riviera, doesn't it? Oh, but he didn't cave or anything. He didn't bow to the pressure. He didn't, get surrounded by people who were not his yes men and saying, "You're fucking it up for everybody in the world." Oh no, this is part of his master genius plan. No. See, I'm starting to think that there is a pattern to this. And it is like we're taking this Trump administration in increments. When he first started talking about about putting on tariffs, when it started his presidency, he talked about it, and then when he's about to implement it on Canada and Mexico, he stopped. He paused. He was testing the waters, dipping his toe in, really. And then that pause lasted a month. Then we get to the next month. And we're really good at tariff now. We're really uber good at tariff now. We're good at tariffing. You're going to make America great and wonderful and super squishy and all that shit. And April 2nd is going to be Liberation Day. Okay. So we go from March into April with all this propaganda bullshit towards us tariffing. How we were tariffing. We get to April 2nd, Liberation Day. Yeah! Tariff the world. Get out the sign. Get the big chart with the formula showing us how we must tariff every place on the planet that has a name on it, including islands that are only inhabited by penguins. We're going to tariff those sons of bitches. And the market crashes 2 days in a row, 2,000 points going down. He goes golfing. He doesn't want to hear it, just be surrounded by yes men. That was great, boss. That was beautiful, boss. All his little social media and news cycle media gerbils get on to defend his shit and just can't contradict their leader. This is genius. This is massive genius. And they go to the point of like, don't even look at your stock portfolio. Don't even look at your pensions and benefits. Don't look at the stock market. I mean, Fox News legitly removed the stock ticker. Wow, that's just that's kind of amazing in of itself that they're so in the tank and they don't want to acknowledge this, that it's going down the way it is, that they've removed the stock ticker at the bottom of the screen. Like pretty much every time Trump was talking about tariffs from April 2nd on up, and it's like, they don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to acknowledge that dear leader's words was actually making stockbrokers go into mental meltdown, that they are going to halt their stock trading and sell and just tank the market. Causing chaos and uncertainty does not help the world, especially in a world in economic recovery or trying to be part of economic recovery. And if we're not going to worry about the world because we're so gung-ho America first, we're not going to give a shit about the world because that would be globalism. We don't want that. But all right, so let's worry about only the United States. You're fucking up the United States. I am a layman. in all this. I'm never going to claim that I am an economic expert on anything. I live my life paycheck to paycheck, and I always think it's cha-ching time when I can actually go into the next paycheck and still have $100 before my next pay. So, all this liquid money that I hear about, especially coming out of Doge and how much they're saving the American people, we just got hundreds of millions of dollars over here, hundreds of millions of dollars over there, we got a couple billion over here. That's, for someone like me, that's all fictional. That doesn't exist in my world. My world is making sure you have enough food to go into the next week. And maybe if you have just a little bit enough over that you can actually pay for your medication. Or else you do without. Or you do out one or the other. And you don't run the risk of not being able to pay for your rent so you can have a roof over your head. The type of things that people like me worry about when we go to the grocery store. Grocery, the word that Trump thought was so antiquated, and it was I never heard of grocery before in this context. This is weird. This is like olden times. See, I'm not a layman again. But I can understand the nationalistic need of making people, or compelling people, or wanting people to buy American goods. That's great. I have no problem with that. The problem is our business, as it stands. We in this country, in the United States, have more of a consumer class than we do have the productive class. And it is far easier for companies to get their manufacturing elsewhere, cheaper. But it's not a bad thing to want us to become this manufacturing juggernaut. But the problem is that we are so behind the eight ball on that it will take us years to get to the point where we are indeed that manufacturing juggernaut that they all want us to be. They warned, Elon Musk warned those before the election that there would be financial pain involved in that. And that is an honest statement that you don't really need to criticize Elon Musk for. He was being more honest than Trump was. Trump, on day one was going to fix the prices at the grocery store, lower the cost of eggs. His attempt to lower the cost of eggs was trying to get the agencies that was warning people of bird flu to stop warning people about bird flu. So that maybe the price of eggs would go down if no one knew that there was a bird flu happening. It's like during the time of COVID where he wanted people to stop counting the cases of COVID each day. Because if you don't see the cases, then they're not there. Woo! So many things are wrong with this presidential administration. The economic side is just one facet of this shit diamond that we have here, this crusty shit diamond. One facet is our economic woes with the tariffs and the inflation and this and that. And then the next next facet is our foreign atrocities. if it isn't us trying to, and it's probably form a distraction since we haven't heard about it lately, but what's going on with Gaza, what's going on in Ukraine, us trying to, we're going to get Greenland, we're going to get it, oh yeah. And then Canada, I did stop hearing about that Canada being the 51st state. That's no longer a viable thing we were wanting to do. It was a necessity. I guess when you're trying to hide what you're doing with the tariffs underneath, you need to have this thing up here to be the outrageous thing. So, outrageously claim that we're just going to take Canada. We'll just take it. We'll economically crush Canada to the point where they can't do nothing but submit and yield to our power, and then we'll take them and make the entire chunk of land between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean all one state. Excusez-moi. Hi, man. So, with everything going on with foreign and our economic, it then comes what we're doing in our immigration, or lack thereof, or deportation. On that front, I'm disappointed, of course, with the Supreme Court in them giving not only the go-ahead to continue the Venezuelan deportation flights, but also they're seemingly granting Trump the pause themselves to not bring back Mr. Garcia, who they wrongfully deported out into El Salvador. They gave him the cookie of pause to not immediately bring this person back from an El Salvadorian gulag. Because they don't want him back, even though they made a mistake of sending him in the first place. They allowed their political hacks to label this man to be an MS-13 member. No, not a member, a leader. With no evidence. This is a human being that they just threw away. And they want to throw away so many more. It is an interesting pattern that comes from not only this Trump administration, but the previous Trump administration, how they have this one thought: get rid of, tear up, destroy. But while they're in the zeal of doing this and talking about this and hyping that up, that they don't have the next part of this plan. It's like it likens me to the old South Park episode about the underwear gnomes, the underpants gnomes, where they explain their plan to the kids of why they steal underpants. Step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, Step 3, profit. Yeah, so much of the Trump administration, from the first to the second one, is like that. Where we're all gung-ho with Step 1. Pretty fuzzy on Step 2, but Step 3, we're going to profit. Step 1, get rid of all migrants, illegal or otherwise. Illegal, obviously, we have to get rid of those regardless of them ever committing any actual crime, because being illegal is a crime anyway, apparently. But then Step 2, who's going to be doing the work of the people that you've kicked out of this country? The kind of work that us peach and apricot Crayola skin pigmentation people didn't want to be doing. Who are you going to get to do that? Well, we have the only legal form of slave labor left in the United States is, of course, prisoners, so you can get chain gangs to do work, I guess. Or go the route of Florida and relax those silly child labor laws. Get the kids back out there in the iron schmelts. Or be newsies. Yeah, they can love the caps. No, they don't. They don't have a plan. They don't have a step 2. And that's not just about immigration or deportation. It's about everything else that they ever want to do. Step 1. By whatever means necessary, claim Greenland as our territory. Step 2. Step 3. Profit. How? Don't know. We saw that in the first Trump administration when it came to trying to destroy the ACA and or Obamacare, which John McCain, in one of his last acts, gave the thumbs down to and prevented that from happening. And again, in that, they didn't have a plan. Even up to the point of the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, he has, even then, years and years later, he had concepts of plans, but he did not have a plan. But we would destroy the ACA without there being a replacement. We need to destroy that first before you put anything together. So we saw that happening, and we're seeing that happening again in our economic issues concerning the tariffs. We need to bring back manufacturing in the United States. So we need to tariff goods coming from different countries. We need to hike their prices up, punishing our consumers who buy them. And those companies that do business with foreign interests to bring those goods here. We need to punish them. That's step 1. Step 2, to make us this manufacturing pro-America, America first juggernaut. Again, it's just because we do not have anything in place for this America first industry in all the industries of our consumer in our consumer pushed economy in place for us to turn to American only goods. And even red-blooded American companies still buy their materials, their components to manufacture what they're doing elsewhere. We still get foreign materials to assemble into things that we will call American. So we are supposed to sit on our hands and just shrug and go, oh, I totally understand that we're suffering hardships for the next 2 or 3 years, but it'll be totally worth it. You know, perhaps if we were honest with ourselves that this was going to happen, and I'm not just saying that just Elon Musk saying this, I'm talking about Trump saying this when he was hawking his presidential bid and saying that he was going to lower prices immediately. It's going to happen really, really fast. If they came out and says that this is our plan, and they left the warts on the plan so people would understand what's going to happen, maybe we would be less pissed about it and we would understand. Maybe not agree with it, but understand. But he didn't. He said he was going to lower the prices immediately. Everything was going to be wonderful. We're going to make the country wealthy again. Again, layman, how's this going to make me wealthy when I'm just a paycheck by paycheck retail worker who rants online? When this presidential administration is tearing apart the functionality and administrative supports of our government that helps the people. People, like, say, with education and so forth. How are we going to be wealthy? The billionaire class will be wealthy. I always find it funny that the people who tout these tariffs are the kind of people that the tariffs won't be bothering them. They're not making, compare and contrast decisions on what to buy, food or medication, but as long as both doesn't impede getting rent paid for, they don't have the concerns like that. They're certainly not living the life I'm living, or maybe perhaps the lives that you're living, on the various scales of how successful you are. They're above the smog that they produce for us to breathe. They're above that. They're the Jetsons. While we're down here on ground level that you never ever saw during the Jetsons. And why they kept raising their buildings over the clouds? Boy, they never bring that up in the cartoon, is it? Pollution! Pollution that they cause. And the only way to answer is not stop the pollution, not stop the productivity that creates and maintains and perpetuates that pollution. No. Let's just raise the buildings up so that we don't have to be in there. Don't have to smell it or be infected by it. Infected by our own consumer industrial byproducts. And this is a rant. There you go. The problem in this case of us, once again, reversing ourselves on tariffs for the third or fourth time, is that this time the damage is now done. Between the anticipation of the April 2nd tariffs and then them coming online, the market lost $10 trillion. Poof. Gone. Market uncertainty is not a good thing. Not if you are not a vulture. Not someone who thrives on chaos, that thrives on the misery of others so that you can make some sort of financial advancement for yourself. Trump said publicly that he wants the United States to be the rippers off of the other countries in the world, because he kept saying over and over again how the rest of the world was ripping us off. The most wealthiest country in the world is getting ripped off by these other countries. Oh, darn. While you having Doge go after the nickels and dimes that helps people, and never touching the defense budget. Oh, I hear tell that Hexeth has said that the United States defense budget is going to be $1 trillion. Great. And that's and that's not exactly a new thing. I mean, we've been complaining about it for years. I remember at the time of the rise of HIV and AIDS in the mid-'80s, where the CDC was having trouble getting funding in order to research AIDS, to learn about it in any significant way, because the stigma of AIDS being what it was initially thought of as being a gay disease. And they didn't want to put money into a gay disease. It was called GRID at the time. gay-related immune deficiency. Well, when heterosexual Haitians were starting to get it, and when people started realizing that it was also tainted the blood, so it was in the blood supply, and that, men and women would be getting it. In fact, the first known case of somebody who had AIDS was in 1979 in Copenhagen, and it was a woman. But at the time, no one wanted to seriously put money in researching AIDS, or finding out where it came from, what to do about it, why is it gobbling up the T cells, why in of itself it's this medical tornado where the tornado itself won't kill you, but everything inside the tornado will kill you. Meaning that AIDS itself lowers the T cells, which allows infectious diseases that your T cells would normally fight off to assert themselves, and then grotesquely, painfully, and awfully will kill you. Things our immune systems combat every day that we can just brush aside because of our healthy immune systems, but not in this case. In that time, during one of the State of Unions, Ronald Reagan talked about all the budgets that was getting decreased, except the military budget, which is the only budget he said would be increased. Which, people clapped. And incidentally, Reagan didn't say the term AIDS until his second term. So many people were suffering and dying of this thing that we shouldn't be talking about. Just shove that shit in the closet, like the people they wanted to keep in the closet. So it's nothing new that we still, for some reason, feel this desperate need to always be above the 11 countries under us combined in our wealth of our military budget. But circling around again, it's good that I'm doing this, because that is the spin we're hearing upon Trump's tariffs and his positive tariffs and the analog genius that it is that he paused them. Oh, he got them over a barrel now. Oh, this was the art of the deal. Y'all said that this wasn't a deal, that this was permanent. Or some of y'all said it was negotiating tactics, but some of them were negotiating and some of them are not negotiable. And Trump says, we could be both. By the definitions of these terms, no, it cannot be. Negotiable, non-negotiable. And I always find it interesting how only we are supposed to do the tariffs. Only we are supposed to put the financial screws to these countries. And, but the other countries shouldn't retaliate. No, don't retaliate. No, just take it. Take it. Just let it happen, baby. How many issues of this presidential administration, be it tariffs, or be it our dealing with Ukraine, or our dealing and trying to keep some sort of ceasefire with Gaza and Israel, that our terminology and our actions isn't actions of someone just sexually assaulting someone. Just let it happen, baby. Just let it happen. Ukraine, just let it happen. Just we'll protect you by convincing you, by pounding it down to you that you should surrender half your country, at least. Do that to the Palestinian people. Oh well, Hamas is fucking horrible, but since but all you Palestinians just gotta go. You just gotta go. You just gotta go. Then, once we clean everything nice and up, then the locals will come in. Who are the locals? Geez, I wonder who. We'll get in, and it'll just be beautiful. It'll be beautiful. As long as we get you out. As long as you get you Palestinians out. And then he'll say, I never said that. I never said that at all, even though it's like on camera. But I'm the president, so when I say it didn't happen, it didn't happen. No. Nope. Don't live in reality. And same thing with tariffs. Just let it happen. Don't retaliate. Don't defend yourself. Don't do reciprocal tariffs back at us. No, the Master Genius plan of him pausing now has nothing to do with the 25% across-the-board tariffs that the EU and all the European countries within the EU was going to do to us. Oh, also, if anyone happens to be in New York City, the people who watch this, would you mind sashaying yourself down to the Trump Tower and go to the gift shop and give us a little on the scene reporting of how many items in that gift shop was made in America and how many were not. Tally it up, please. Just curious. Just a little curiosity. Alright, I'm going far afield, and I'm going to try to land the plane on, but as I'm landing the plane, I'm going back to a thing that I alluded to in terms of our immigration and deportation. What happened to Mr. Garcia? What happened to the gentleman who was deported because he had a tattoo, and the tattoo was about autism for his 15-year-old brother who has autism, but somehow that's a gang tat for some fucking reason. We're so fucking ignorant of a species in this country that where we're just, oh, you have a tattoo, you gotta go, you have a tattoo, you have a tattoo, gotta go, you're a maker, you have to go. And that's justifiable? Like I said, I'm not all that. I'm very disappointed in the Supreme Court, but 6-3, we kind of understood how things were going. But I will say this, though, especially in the terms of the Venezuelan flights, of letting those go, I will give the acknowledgement to the Supreme Court that at least they were trying to have it both ways, where they will agree with they will let the flights go to these forced deportations, but the Venezuelan people that they're snatching up and trying to forcefully deport, they do have to have their day in court. But in the mix of that both ways thing here, they also wanted to say that those people who are being deported have to have their day in court in Texas. Kangarooing the court a bit so that it can have the appearance of just rubber stamping the deportations. But at the very least, that is some semblance of due process. Again, as I said in the last video, when people say that an illegal immigrant does not deserve due process, that a legal guest of this country does not deserve due process because of political speech against the policies of these United States. When people say that, they're full of shit. Because due process isn't something that is deserved. It is something that is. It is part of our rule of law. It is what differentiates us from the parent stem that we had a revolution about. They are giving us the imperial royal authority of saying that these people are guilty until proven innocence. You're already guilty. You walked in there, your hands cuffed, you're guilty. Prove that you're not guilty. prove to us in front of a panel of people, especially in Texas, which as the appearances are going, that already think that you're guilty and you're wasting your time. That is not what our country is about. And if it is what our country is becoming because of this fucking administration, then the slide is continuing at our downfall. It's not stopping. It's not slowing down. The Trump administration is now toying with the idea of deporting to El Salvador, to these gulag prisons, U.S. citizens. United States citizens. Let me elaborate on this for y'all. The authority that Trump is using for these mass deportations is coming from the Alien Enemies Act from 1798. This act was used in order to justify Japanese Americans in good standing being rounded up and thrown into internment camps during World War II. The Aliens Enemies Act is connected to the Alien and Sedition Act. It is a part of it. It is not the whole. It is a piece. It's a small piece of this overarching act of the Alien Sedition Act that was put about by John Adams. The Aliens Enemy Act is the justification of these deportations because they're claiming that especially the Venezuelans are part of a invasion force of this particular gang, right? All these hundreds of people, thousands of people, all part of this one gang. It's a freaking large gang, isn't it? But here comes the sedition part. And this is the part that should actually scare American citizens. Part of the Alien Sedition Act was to curtail criticism against the United States government, and specifically its president. John Adams didn't like the idea that people were criticizing what he was doing and or what he was wanting to do. Excuse me. Especially the newspapers. Because newspapers was the medium of the time. Obviously there was no TV. So the first thought of this deportation of U.S. citizens, as people were defending him, as like gerbils on CNN, like Scott Jennings was defending, is that these are prisoners. These are prisoners convicted of crimes, so why not send them away? They're U.S. citizens. We have prisons. You all made big business out of prisons. Because again, prisoners is our only legal form of slave labor. So for the past couple of decades, you made big business out of that. State governments would help fill prisons and then get kickbacks because it is a money big business. So that's the first thought. See, once again, things happen. They don't happen all at once. There's always little increments. Very little increments. Things that almost sound benign, even in their absurdity. Like, it's so benign at the idea, why don't we send our prisoners, our United States citizen prisoners, to El Salvador? To this maximum security gulag. Yeah, they're prisoners. They don't matter. Why worry about them or their family, their livelihoods, their They're convicted felons. They're murderers, rapists, and thieves. They're assaulters. So what's wrong? What's wrong with our own prisons again? America first until. To see if that is somehow socially acceptable. If we get over the hump of acknowledging that that's socially acceptable, then what's next? What else will be socially acceptable? On a side note, the Department of Justice is actively scouring migrants' social media posts. The justification of removing them if they make any social media posts, make any expression of thought in the land of the free with the freedom of speech. If they made any that goes against our policies, against our bestest buddy Israel, for instance, for the Israeli government. If you make any posts about that, then they probably have to write that down, then write your name down, and then all of a sudden you get black bagged and out you go. DOJ is looking into that. As I said, of Trump and the Trump administration toying with the idea of sending U.S. citizens, only prisoners now. Prisoners, remember, the socially acceptable group of people that we're going to fucking abuse and throw away. The sedition part comes in. If it's socially acceptable to send our United States citizens who are convicted felons or convicted misdemeanors, just convicted prisoners, send them away. If that becomes socially acceptable, what's next in being socially acceptable? Could it be people who are in political opposition to this particular facet of the federal government, of this particular presidential administration? If too much criticism goes against it? Trump was signing an executive order yesterday in the midst of this turmoil that he caused and then paused, going after two people who said that he lost the 2020 election, signed an executive order for them to be investigated for saying he lost the 2020 election. So, at what point are we going to break down and submit and comply to the idea that not only U.S. citizen prisoners should be sent to El Salvador, but political dissidents who are doing nothing wrong but expressing their opinions under the First Amendment to criticize their government? Should they be rounded up? Should we be rounded up? Should I be rounded up? Should be black-bagged, sent away, never to be seen or heard of again? They're not going to try really hard of getting Mr. Garcia back. They're not trying real hard to let us know where Mahmoud Khalid is. And all he did was talk against Israel. No matter how much you can paint the picture of him being some sort of, Hamas recruiter or being pro-Hamas, if he's pro anything, he's pro-Palestinian, and Palestinian is not Hamas. Again, and I said this on a social media post, people out there do not want you to be a critical thinker. They want you to lump Palestinians and Hamas until they're all one thing, so that when they get displaced, when they get killed by the hundreds and thousands, when they have their power turned off, their water turned off, their children slaughtered, their women raped, don't cry for them because they're all Hamas. And by the flip side of that coin, They want you to not separate with critical thinking the men and women and children of Israel, their Jewish faith, and their government, and the actions of their government. They do not want you to separate what Bibi Netanyahu is doing and his government is doing to the people of Gaza, separate that from the Israeli people. Is some Israeli people happy what's going on in Gaza? I'm sure. I'm sure they are. As horrific as that sounds, I'm sure there is. But that's not anti-Semitic to say that, because I can understand a people who believes themselves, and rightfully in most cases, believes themselves to be under fire by people that have been wanting their country destroyed from its forceful inception. But even if that's the desire, that does not give them gives them the responsibility that the Israeli government has in those actions. There is a separation. There's a separation between the government that is acting an awful lot like a certain other government that was horrific to them, to these old men and women in the Israeli government, their parents, their grandparents that suffered under a regime that they themselves seem to be acting like. I think it's a bit of abuse syndrome. You know, if you look through the actions of people who are abused, or who are abusing people, either sexually abusing them, or physically abusing them, or emotionally abusing them, if you look through the past of the abuser, you find out that the abuser was being abused themselves, and they're conditioned to be abused. So I can throw that idea into the idea of what's going on with these people who feel the need to do the same type of abusive shit to the Palestinians. But again, they do not want you to critically think and separate the machinations and activities of the Israeli government with the Israeli people and the Jewish faith. They want you to believe that all is the same, so that if you criticize the Israeli government for their actions in Gaza, then you are against the Israeli people, you are pro-Hamas, you are against the Jewish faith, you are anti-Semite. They do not want you to critically think. They don't want you critically thinking of this Trump presidency, of this our President Donald Trump. They don't want you to critically think of Elon Musk and Doge, and why Doge goes after certain things, which happens to, incidentally, being parts of these departments that are investigating Elon Musk's companies. They don't want you to have the critical thought of going, that's interesting. They don't want you to critically think about the motivations of these tariffs. They want you to be simplistic. Say, this is just for America, for everything to come back to America, to make America wealthy again. They don't want you to critically think and ask the questions, how would this make me wealthy? How? They don't want you to critically think upon the destruction of the Department of Education and thinking about what would happen to our special needs kids who go through these things. Special needs kids like I was going through school. At this time period, I'd be thrown away. Or worse. Even the fact that my problems stemmed from a depression dealing with my parents getting a divorce when I was a kid, that would send me to an institution because I was depressed, or lump me together as they did in the emotionally disturbed, disabled category, where they lumped all the different facets of everything that is special needs together in one very tiny classroom in the corner of a school nowhere near regular ed. They don't want you to critically think of the separations of even our varieties of emotional disablement. They don't want you to critically think about the causation and the different varieties of autism. They don't want you thinking about the spectrum. They don't want you to critically think, period. They just want you to comply. Stop fighting back. Comply. Comply. You're just wasting your time. You're just wasting your time. You're wasting your energy. You're wasting maybe your money if you're investing or you're putting donations in for opposition think tanks. I help support protests, like the protest of millions and millions and millions of people at Hands Off, that I'm sure Donald Trump didn't know anything about what was in his golf course, where millions of people across the country protested him that did not like him. How about those fucking crowd sizes? But no, they don't want you to critically think about that either. They don't want you to critically think at all. They want you to comply. They want you to lay back and just let it happen, baby. Again, every single political issue of this Trump administration always seems to go back to the words of a sexual assault. Just let it happen. At what point do we get tired of that? 2 years or 4 years down the line? What gets us to the point where our own side, for those who are democratically inclined, what does it take for this side to get the right message that this is wrong and have it resonate? To try to connect to people. Do not allow them, the Trump administration and those on his spectrum of the Republican Party, to control the narrative. As far as the last presidential administration goes, they controlled the narrative of the fact that the Democrats only cared about trans folk and drag queen story time. And we just want to hug all illegal immigrants. And let's let them in. They don't want you to, again, without they lull people into this false sense of what's real, what's not real, because they gloss over the concept of critical thinking. They told you what to think. And I'm not trying to be insulting here upon those who voted for Trump. I know there are people who voted for Trump who had legit reasons to vote for Trump. But the problem is that at some point, when all this is happening, we have to look at you and go, is this what you wanted? Are you happy with this? And if you're happy with this, God bless. You're happy with this. You're happy with what's happening right now. But we're going to have to keep asking over and over again, as this gets worse and worse and worse, because this is going to be a long 4 years. I have no illusions of the fact that even after the midterms, even after the Democrats, if the Democrats win back any control of the House or any control of the Senate, they're not going to win back enough to have the 2/3 necessary to impeach. So Donald Trump is going to be president for 4 years. Nothing's going to happen to him. He'll be 4 years in. And he'll complete it. So what is our Democratic Party to do to resonate a message here? Because, again, stop letting them control the narrative. Don't let them give the idea that, us giving human respect to people who are transgender make it mean that we only care about the transgender and we don't care about anything else and we want to support them and so forth and be totally 100% gung-ho. It is about just giving people respect. They don't even want you to have respect for your fellow man or woman. They don't want that. They don't want you to critically think. Again, Stop letting them control the narrative. We need to reinsert reality into the narrative. Insert the reality in the narrative of the past few days is that Trump caved. Once again. The third time. But the damage has been done. The world does not see us as a competent, reliable trade partner. Sure as hell, many of our allies do not think of us as allies anymore. As Canada looks to Europe for its support, and Europe looks to themselves for their support. And the whole world is now looking to China for the economic support as opposed to the United States. Thanks, Trump. And all the while, Nero Trump will play on his Truth Social. He will play golf while his country, figuratively and literally in cases, burns. And people will just still praise him for that. The last thing I'm going to say, because I'm over an hour again. The media has been getting a bad rap, and some of it's just justified, some of it's earned. But the media really wants to be the voice of the people, or wants to ask the questions for the people. They need to stop sugarcoating. When people bring up that Trump is seriously considering a third term, instead of asking hypothetical questions or questions that gets brushed off and laughed at condescendingly, say, how does this not violate the 22nd Amendment? What are the ways? Because even if you somehow elect Trump to the Speaker of the House, and the President and the Vice President all seem to resign, and he becomes President, he still can't become President. Because he already had his time. How? Explain it to us. But people are so desperate in the media to be in the room for Press Secretary Barbie to lie to them. At Sean Spicer levels about crowd size, lie to them. That they will just accept it and move on. Those who actually ask the hard questions, she throws a temper tantrum and which of course looks so good for Trump. Yeah, this is the people he hires, all the best people, right? But our media is failing us. Just for the sake of staying in the room. To stay in the room with Donald Trump, stay in the room with Carrie-Ann Levitt, and all these other gerbils. Instead of being the true media to ask the true questions for us, in our stead, representing us, for us to hear the answers, they will softball it as much as possible. Play the hypotheticals. And will accept, without follow-up, any answer that is utter bullshit, but nonetheless, if they dare contradict, they might have to be forced out of the room, and Christian Mingle might have to take their place, or some right-wing podcaster that wears a watch cap. As a political ranter with a very small blip on YouTube, perhaps this is my uniform here, my United States pro thing here. Maybe that's my uniform. Maybe that's my watch cap. I mean, my basement, Irish Brigade flag. So, maybe that's my shtick. That's my shtick here. But in any event, America. And I'm speaking to you, my fellow United States ladies and jelly spoons. Our men, our women, our children, transgendered men and women. I mean, everybody. Stop allowing others to tell you that you shouldn't critically think. Always ask questions. Always ask questions. If nothing else, listen to George Carlin. You know, it's not, when he talks about education, it's not just about teaching children how to learn information and learn these histories and learn this. It is about teaching them to ask the questions as to why. Why is this happening? Why is that like that? Always ask questions. Question everything. Until we're no longer able to question, do not go gentle into the good night. Ranter rants because the urge to rant is always rising. And, you know, in the next 3 months, we'll be back yet again into another tariff catastrophe where we're going to put the tariffs back on, and then 2 days later we're going to take them off for maybe 120 days. And then 150 days. And 180 days. And so forth, and so forth, and so forth until, oops, Trump's no longer president, and none of this shit happened. And we didn't get the big utopia, the golden age that he was promising us. I'm sure it's all the Democrats' fault, or somehow Biden's fault after years. But, you know, can't blame him. He tried, you know. I'll just say that all this is a very long-term form of infrastructure weak. If you know the first Trump administration, you know what I mean. I will see you next time.